Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm Kaylee Q. I'm the Senior Editor for Methods at Cochrane. I'll be introducing and moderating the session today. So I'd first like to thank you all for joining us and welcome. Thank you very much for choosing this session, which is going to be around the Methods Support Unit and how we're working with other teams all across Cochrane to help authors and editors choose methods wisely and to use them accurately within Cochrane reviews. So we've got three fantastic speakers today that I suspect some of you will already know. So once I've given a little bit of an introduction, we'll hear from Kerry Dwan, first of all, Method Support Unit Lead, followed by Tess Moore, who is our methodology editor in the Method Support Unit. And finally, Ella Fleming will come and give a short presentation, and she's our Cochrane's Methods Implementation Manager. So we've designed the session to try and be as interactive as possible, which is, given the circumstances. So we'd love it if you could make up for us not being able to see you in person by being as vocal as you can in the live Q&A box, which is on the right-hand side of your screens. Hopefully you've used it already if you went to the plenary. Because really we're keen to use this session not just to give you a bit of an update about what we've been doing and our plans, but also to hear from as many of you as possible and to build your views into what we're doing. So you can submit comments and questions throughout the session in the Q&A box, where you can also view and upvote other people's comments. We've dedicated plenty of time after the first two presentations and also at the end of the session to look at the questions and to have a discussion. So hopefully we'll be able to get through all of them. But if there are lots, then we'll try to deal with the ones that have had the most votes first. We will also be running some polls during the session to get your views. So to view them, you can also see those hopefully on the right-hand side of your screen. So they'll be, as they're launched, you'll be able to vote and then you'll be able to see how everyone else has responded. And another reminder that I think you can see on your screens there, that if you want to contribute on Twitter, you can tweet about the event and connect with each other using the hashtag #VirtuallyCochrane. Okay, so the goals of this session really are, firstly, that we want you to go away feeling informed about what the Method Support Unit offer and who they are and how they work with Cochrane's CRG, the review group networks, and also with the methods groups. So you'll hear from Kerry and you'll see that although the MSU is quite a small team, they've proven themselves to be very mighty in the last kind of 18 months or so that they've been working. And really our priority is to make sure that their expertise and their time is used in the best way possible and in the way that will make the biggest impact in terms of improving the quality of our reviews and the time it takes to produce them. And that's really where that second point comes in and where we want to hear from you. So we want to know what your views are about which resources and tools and training the MSU should be focusing on. And then the third point is what Ella will be talking about and we'll be guiding the discussion around, which will be talking about some developments and plans aimed at growing our community of methodologists and better connecting them with review production. Okay, so to begin with, though, we wanted to have a bit of an icebreaker and to get your creative juices flowing. So could you all please use the Q&A box to tell us in 5 words or fewer what Cochrane really means to you? And this is where hopefully I'll be able to see things as they start to come in. Well, that's nice to know. Enthusiastic and appreciative audience. So I'm not seeing much come in at the moment. Perhaps I would probably say something, if I was to answer this question, I would use words like collaborative and informed decisions. As a senior methods editor, I'd probably want to say something about quality. Let's have a look. High quality, I can see coming in, rigorous evidence synthesis, standardized methodologies. Yeah, we do try. Quality, rigor, loads, standardized, yeah. Good practice for evidence-based research. Quality, yeah. So there's loads of stuff. So actually the real themes that are coming through there, which is great to see, and I think is really the pillar of what Cochrane is that methods are at the heart of what we do. And it's what we're known for. It's what our reputation is. Rigorous transparency, integrity, comprehensiveness. This is fantastic. Thank you everyone for popping those in there. But actually what we've found, and what I want to kind of bring out here, is that timeliness is really key as well. And actually we're in a scenario now where our methods and the complexity of our methods and the range of methods that are available to authors are actually now creating some challenges, and our reviews are getting more and more complex. We're asking more of our authors, and as a consequence the reviews are taking longer to do. So we really need to find sustainable ways of supporting our authors and review groups with some knowledge and some tools, and making sure that they've got access to expert methodologists, to make sure that we can maintain that reputation that you've all picked out about the quality of our reviews. And really that's what the Methods Support Unit was set up to do, to act as a bit of a hub of methods expertise, to work closely with other Cochrane staff and groups and bring that together, and to ensure the consistency and accuracy of the methods used in our reviews. So thank you all for those contributions. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on before I hand over to Kerry is just some data that we collected in around about a year ago now, in April, May time, just as the pandemic was really starting to cause lots of problems. But we asked our review groups about the challenges that staff were facing with the method. So this is a review group perspective, but obviously they are the people that work very closely with authors. And what we see here is that the thing that is causing the most problem, we asked the people that responded to think not just in terms of the complexity of that method, but actually how often they were coming up against this, how many reviews were affected, and the time actually that they were spending supporting authors and bringing up the standard of reviews. And what we see is that it's the core methods. Actually, our core methods have already in themselves become quite complex. And bringing up the standard of those reviews came top in terms of this, how the CRGs responded. And beyond that, we were seeing things like network meta-analysis and risk of bias 2. They were the first things. They're quite, risk of bias 2 still a relatively novel tool, so that may be why that's sort of causing some challenges. And then we have a cluster of some other areas, things like non-randomized studies of interventions, prognostic and diagnostic reviews, complex intervention reviews. So there's lots of things that are causing delays and some issues with the complexity of methods. And then following on from that, we asked a second question, which was, okay, so, it's one thing that they're using these complex methods, but actually, which ones do you think have the greatest potential to improve the relevance and the quality of the reviews that we're producing? So this is really about, we need to make sure that we're choosing methods wisely, so that extra effort that's put in is being passed on and translated into a much more reliable and complete review that we're giving to the end user. And here's what we see, which I think was really interesting, is that actually it's a strikingly similar pattern. So not just are we seeing the same things come up, we're seeing a really similar order. So I've tried to show that down the left-hand side there. And really what I've taken from that, and what I think it's that I wanted to kind of pass on, was that complexity of methods and the accuracy of using methods can't be avoided. So it's not just a case of simplifying our reviews. It's actually up to Cochrane, based on what we've just seen there, to be thinking about ways of supporting authors and editors to really navigate that the environment of methods and to keep up with the pace of change. So on that note then, I'm going to hand over to Kerry, who will talk about how the Methods Support Unit is starting to address some of these issues and help authors and editors to navigate this complex methods environment. So Kerry is the Methods Support Unit lead. She's also a statistical editor. And yeah, she's going to go through what the MSU are and how they've been working over the last 18 months or so. Over to you, Kerry.
Thanks, Kaylee. So as Kaylee said, I'm a statistical editor and the Method Support Unit lead. I've been with Cochrane for 6 years now, and the Method Support Unit was created in October 2019. in response to the review screening and trying to improve the quality of Cochrane reviews. So we've just got a few quizzes to check how much you know about the Method Support Unit already. So the first one, if you go to the right-hand side of your screen, is what sort of methods does the Method Support Unit support? So if you could just, so the options are standard Cochrane methods, complex and emerging methods, or both. So it'd just be interesting to see what you think we do. I'm just waiting for that to start coming in.
I don't know if you can see that, Kerry, or if you can hear me.
I can hear now.
But it's on the platform, so we've got 90% of people have correctly identified that it's both.
All right, okay, great. Sorry, yeah, it's not showing on mine for some reason. Okay, yeah, so the Method Support Unit supports quality assurance of novel or lesser used methods that require specialist expertise, but also we work closely with the CRG network staff, so we can spot and resolve common errors and challenges with more standard methods as well. So as I mentioned, the review screening, there's an established process through the associate editors for the networks, and we aim to provide guidance and advice when that expertise isn't otherwise available from the associate editors or the network support fellows or the network senior editors. And we also look at the reviews to assist with capacity as well when the associate editors are very busy. And we're available to answer any general methodological or statistical queries that are sent from CRGs or network support fellows or the associate editors as well. So these are some of the methods that we do cover, and I'll talk more about those in a moment. The next quiz is, how many support requests does the Method Support Unit process each month? So if you just go to the polls again. And Kaylee, if you could read the answers out as they come in, because I'm not seeing them for some reason. That's fine. I mean, if this is your first encounter with the Method Support Unit, you know that you don't need to answer. It's just we're just trying to let people know we're here, and it's just interesting for us to find out if people are aware of us already or not. So
it's moved around a little bit, but we have 38% of people think that it's the top one, 40 to 50, and 62% of people, so the majority, think that it's 20 to 40, and no one said that it was under 20, so everyone knows that there's clearly a lot of requests coming through to you guys. Ooh.
Great, thanks, Kaylee. So far we've received about 650 requests in total. And these requests have been steadily increasing from about 20 per month from when we first started to we received over 50 in February this year. So I think as people are becoming more aware of us, so that we are hearing from people more often. And we tend to see more reviews than protocols. And the majority of methods that we seem to have had queries on is Risk of Bias 2. So we were very involved with the pilot, network meta-analysis, and the inclusion of non-randomized studies of interventions as well. So there are three most commonly asked queries or peer review requests. So going on to the next poll. So we'd really like to find out if you knew about us already and if you've been in touch. So if you could just complete that to let us know if you've been in touch with the Method Support Unit. And Kaylee, if you can let me know the answers again.
They are slowly trickling in. We're certainly seeing most people, so 43% have said not yet, they've not yet been in touch. 20% didn't know about you, unfortunately. And then we've got about 12% each of people that have been involved through peer review of protocols or through specific queries and with the support for complex methods. And then we've got a few people that have been involved through the web clinics.
Okay, that's really good to know. I mean, that's one of the aims of this workshop today is, to let you know that we're here. You can contact us via the associate editors if you have any queries or peer review requests. And this is just talking about a little bit about what else we do within the Method Support Unit. So we're a small team at the moment, it's just myself and Tess, but we are in the process of recruiting another statistician. So we need to target support and developments to the right part of the review development and the key challenges that will make the most difference to end users. We work closely with the methods groups to build capacity and cover different review types. So we're aiming to be the bridge between the methods groups and the networks, so we can offer the right support in each scenario. And in addition to hands-on support for protocols and reviews received from authors, managing editors and other editors and associate editors, we play a key role with working with the methods groups to develop resources and methods training as well. We work to produce guidance and materials to support editors and authors, both checklists and web resources, which Tess will go through in more detail in a moment. And we've been involved with producing webinars to showcase new methods. So we were recently involved in the Risk of Bias 2 webinar series and the Network Meta-Analysis webinar series, which we organised. And we also ran a webinar on editorial resources for editors. These are both available on Cochrane Training. They've been recorded and they're made available. And we're happy to respond to emails as well. So we have a key role in looking at complex reviews. So we're happy to respond to any emails and also requests coming into the web clinics, which I'll talk about in a moment. And as part of the survey that Kaylee mentioned, one of the questions that was asked was, what type of method support is the most useful? And face-to-face training and support from peers is really important when using complex methods. But the results also suggest a range of options and routes of support is also key to reach all audiences. So we have to be clever about methods training, how it can be delivered, especially this year with the pandemic. And live and recorded webinars have become the default. But we've also developed drop-in web clinics. So this was done in response to suggestions that webinars are less detailed, then you'd need to apply something, or webinars and training are useful but not responsive enough for immediate issues. So we started the web clinics as part of the Risk of Bias 2 pilot, and we had really good feedback. They're a forum for authors and editors to bring queries for discussion with experts and when they encounter specific issues. So because these were really well received, we've now opened that out to all methods as well. And we do ask people to submit queries preferably in advance. That gives us time to look over those queries. There's a web form on the Cochrane Methods website. And then you can attend to hear the discussion about that query, and these are also recorded and made available on the website as well for those who are unable to attend. We want to make the web clinics as useful as possible, and we welcome any views that you have on how we can improve those to meet your needs. And we're also happy to attend any CRG meetings or network meetings. And we've done this to offer Risk of Bias 2 training, for example, and Tess has met with some of the networks to discuss synthesis without meta-analysis. So just so that we can pitch it at the right level for editorial staff, and it's more of a smaller group learning as well. So I'd like to pass over to Tess now. She's our systematic review methodology editor, and she's going to be talking about developing practical methods resources, which is another part of our role as well. Thanks, Tess.
Thanks, Kerry. Yeah, so my name's Tess Moore, and I am a systematic reviewer. And a long time ago now, way back in the 1990s, I was also a managing editor. So I've been involved in Cochrane for a long time. So just going back to this survey we did last year, talking about we asked what types of methods resource were needed, and the highest ranking answers were around expertise within Cochrane review groups, but also guidance, resources and training for authors and for editors was talked about. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're developing guidance within the MSU and with collaborating with our editors. So editors and authors have access at the moment to lots of key authoritative resource material for methods, such as the Cochrane Handbook, which is the main source of information for preparing Cochrane reviews. And they also have access to materials such as Messier, which is a stripped back version of standards of presentation and conduct. But we know from our experience, and you all know as well, that there's a bit of a gap sometimes between the methods as they're presented and what you're asked to do, and actually the nuts and bolts of how to do that. So the pragmatic, practical aspects of doing it, either applying the methods and indeed presenting them. So what we want to do at the MSU is to make life easier for authors and editors using existing methods or even indeed new methods. And so we're trying to develop more guidance. So I'm going to just talk about a case study for this, which is we worked on the Risk of Bias 2 tool. So this was a tool that was published in 2019 in the BMJ and is covered in chapters 7 and 8 in the Cochrane Handbook. There's a lot of material available already for authors and editors, including there's a dedicated website for ROB2, and that includes detailed guidance for authors, and so there really is a lot of material already out there. However, for various reasons, it was decided that it was important for us to run a pilot, for Cochrane to run a pilot, and the MSU were part of that. And the reason a pilot was run was included that the ROB2 tool is a new method with the potential to affect a lot of reviews. It differs fundamentally from previous bias tools because you're asked to look at the bias of a specific result rather than across the study as a whole. And that has implications for how you apply the tool and how you present it. In 2019, when we started, relatively few people had knowledge or experience of using the tool. So there was a capacity issues, and the pilot was aimed to increase that. But also authors needed to be using RevMan Web. So because of this cluster of issues, there was a pilot that was set up. And so the aim of the pilots was to support the authors and editors and provide guidance and build capacity, as I said. And the MSU started off by developing a starter pack for both authors and editors to explain the issues with ROB2. And this starter pack was, I think, first created over a year ago now and has evolved. There have been lots of iterations with feedback from authors and editors. The other thing we did was the MSU reviewed all protocols and reviews in the pilot that used ROB2. And from this, we were able to develop an editorial checklist for use by both editors and authors to ensure that they had covered everything they needed to in their protocol, because there are pre-specified methods that need to be included, and in their presentation for their review. We also developed guidance on presenting ROB2 and in using RevMan Web as well, in conjunction with the RevMan Web team. We set up we developed a list of FAQs based on the queries and questions we were getting, and we put these on a website. And we also developed a list of resources for authors and editors, and we've got links to all of these on a website, which we've set up just for ROB2. In terms of person-to-person help, we also ran and continue to run, as Kerry mentioned, monthly web clinics for ROB2, and these are now expanded to include other methods as well as ROB2. And we also arrange calls to help with authors and editors. So the sort of things we're looking at in the future in terms of developing guidance, we're looking at inclusion of non-randomized studies of intervention and in narrative synthesis. So for non-randomized studies of interventions are covered in chapters 25 and 24 in the Cochrane Handbook. And this also covers the use of Robbins Eye, which is another tool for assessing bias in non-randomized studies of interventions. There are also some, but limited information in Messier as well. So Robbins Eye, like ROB2, needs authors to pre-specify aspects of their bias assessments at the protocol stage. It needs to be applied and reported at the results level, and so reporting differs compared to other study-based tools. So we're developing we've developed some draft guidance on this. We've done this in conjunction with the non-randomized studies of interventions methods group. And this guidance will continue to develop as we go on. In addition to that, we're also interested in looking at narrative syntheses. We're a much earlier stage at this compared to ROB2 and Robbins Eye and NRSI, unfortunately. But what we're keen to do is help people to implement the methods that are described in Chapter 12 of the handbook. We want to help people to be able to set up their narrative syntheses in their protocols and to promote the use of SWIM guidance for reporting of narrative syntheses. And we aim to continue to develop checklists and support for editors and authors. And we will do that in conjunction with feedback from people as well, to make sure that what we're producing is actually useful. So now we're going to go into hearing from everybody about questions and comments. So I'll hand back to Kaylee.
Thank you, Tess, and thank you, Kerry, as well. That was fantastic. So this is our first opportunity to look at some of the questions and the comments that have been coming in. I've been watching over them a little bit. So we've got the first one that came in was more of a statistics or an interpretation query. So this was, please tell me your views on the idea that p-values, as commonly misinterpreted, greatly exaggerate the evidence against the null hypothesis. So I don't know whether one of the statisticians wants to take that. I know what I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why Cochrane advises against focusing on the p-value and presenting the effect estimate with the confidence intervals as well. And they've also moved away from interpreting estimates as statistically significant as well. And so it's important to focus on the clinical importance of the effect estimate as well. I don't know whether you want to add to that, Kaylee, or...
Wholeheartedly agree. I think it's certainly not something that we make a big deal of in terms of the results of our reviews. It's obviously still endemic, I think, in the scientific literature and in medical publishing, that you tend to get a focus on a p-value, but actually, you know, we tend to put a lot more weight onto looking at a confidence interval, and like Kerry says, you know, thinking about what that point estimate looks like and the confidence interval and how that relates to a clinically important benefit. And then, so another question we've got here, can you tell us more about, so I think this is for either you or Tess Kerry, what your typical peer review consists of for a full review? So besides increasing the quality of the paper, does it count anything to speed or bypass some of the peer review process?
So the requests usually come via the associate editors for the networks. So this is obviously this is only for Cochrane reviews. And as I mentioned in my part of the presentation, it tends to be if it's a method that the associate editor is familiar with. So that's why we've seen a lot more network meta-analysis and inclusion of non-randomized studies recently. So the request would go to the associate editor and they would approach us. We've also done some statistical peer review if groups have struggled to obtain a statistical peer reviewer as well. So again, that usually comes via the associate editors. So I'd suggest that, if there is anything that you do want us to look at, whether it's protocols or reviews, just to approach the associate editor for your network. Back when we first started, I did request that we did see every protocol that included network meta-analysis or non-randomized studies, because we were seeing reviews late on in the process that had particular issues, and then we thought that, well, actually, if we saw it at the protocol stage and address these issues there, this would save a lot of time for authors and editors as well.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything to that, Tess?
No, sorry, my internet dropped out, so I missed the question.
That's all right. I mean, just to say that I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that we're seeing delays. So talking about kind of efficiency and how the MSU can try to support that, I think the key to that and the real place where they have a lot of benefit or potential is that kind of early part of the process to try and make sure that we're making sure that teams have the right expertise, that they're, that we're kind of building in the right considerations at the protocol stage. It's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and just to add, we do tend to try and turn things around in a week to 10 days if possible. But obviously it depends on annual leave and also the complexity of the issue as well. Tess and I obviously have expertise in several areas, but if it's more a method that we're not as familiar with, then that's where we go to the methods groups and try and get input there as well. So that might take a bit longer.
And then I've got one final question before we hand over to Ella. And I think this one is actually, I'm going to throw to Ella, if that's okay. Do you keep a registry of reviewers who have used certain methods, tools, etc., so that we can connect people who have first-hand experience?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. And it's something that historically with the platforms that Cochrane's used is we've not been able to identify certain reviewers who have done reviews using certain methods and review types. So there is a move at the moment to move towards using the editorial management system, where we will be able to identify reviews using certain methods much more easily with that system. So we can start building that kind of registry and that information. And I'm also going to touch on, when I talk in a moment, about some work we're doing to use Task Exchange, which is Cochrane's volunteer platform, to better connect methods groups and methodologists to Cochrane review groups and to Cochrane editors and authors, so that if there are methods related tasks where someone has the experience, the expertise and the willingness to do something, that they can showcase that on Task Exchange, and we can kind of match people up and better link between the different groups.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ella. So finally, then we've just got one that's come in that just says, thank you for pointing out all of the risk of bias 2 information. So thank you, Tess. New author, can you use Covidence to complete the risk of bias 2 assessment? The short answer to that is not currently, but it is in development. We're working closely with the Covidence team, but we do recommend that you use there's an Excel tool that you can download from the risk of bias 2 website. Ella, remind me of the URL.
I'll share it in the
okay.
chat. once I've finished talking in the next section.
Which has been designed to sort of walk you through and collate your assessments, and we're working to make sure that we can actually be uploading that into RevMan Web. So we'd recommend you use that for the time being. Okay, so if anyone does have any thoughts about the, any kind of resources or tools or thoughts about what Tess was talking about, then please do send them through, and we'll look at them afterwards, because we would really love to get your views on that. But for now, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tess and Kerry, for your talks. And I'm going to hand over to Ella now, and she's our methods implementation manager, who has works very closely with the methods groups and is going to talk about linking up methodologists and review production.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Kaylee. So hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Ella Fleming. I'm the methods implementation manager in Cochrane. And I'm going to highlight some work on growing and better connecting Cochrane's methods community to support review production. And I think the methods support unit are in a really unique position to be able to try and bridge this, bridge the gap between the methods being developed by the methodologists. And so they're the ones that are described in the handbooks or MASIA, with those who are on the front line and preparing and publishing our systematic reviews. And as we've heard, the request from the front line, from the Cochrane review groups, in terms of how we can help, is on some practical guidance for implementing certain methods. And it's worth sort of mentioning at the moment that our overall aim is to make the lives of authors and editors easier. Okay, so one key issue to flag before I really get into this is that a key issue is for Cochrane that the complexity of methods that we're using has grown over recent years. And what's needed is increased methodological capacity to apply these methods accurately. And then also quality assure these reviews when they're submitted to the Cochrane review groups. And so we've got some of the feedback from the CRG survey that's already been highlighted here. And so if we look at what methods support CRG said they needed, there's three sort of key areas. One is the need for methods expertise within the Cochrane review group. The second area is around peer review and finding methodological or statistical peer reviewers. And the third area is around access to specialist methods expertise at different editorial stages. And so if we're thinking about this, we're thinking about Cochrane authors and methodologists and editors. The main Cochrane groups that we're talking about are the Cochrane review groups and the methods groups. And for those who aren't familiar, there are 17 different methods groups in Cochrane, and each are dedicated to a different method or a different review type. So you've got the bias methods group that's all about risk of bias. You've got the prognosis methods group, all about prognosis reviews, and then 15 others that are dedicated to certain methods or tools. And these methods groups operate largely independently from one another. And so they'll have separate processes for signing up new methodologists, and then they have separate processes for how they manage their membership. And historically, this has meant that the diverse interests and expertise of those affiliated with these groups, so the methodologists that are affiliated with these groups, hasn't been captured or tailored or harnessed in a useful and consistent way. And essentially what I'm saying here is that across Cochrane, we haven't been able to necessarily identify those with the expertise, with the experience, and with the willingness to contribute in a way that reflects the needs of the Cochrane review groups. Okay, so we've been working with those methods groups over the last year or so, and it actually highlighted a lot of overlapping priorities that were highlighted in the CRG survey. And the first is this idea of building methodological capacity within and across Cochrane. And the second was about building a wider, more fluid and inclusive methods community, which will provide more opportunities for early to mid-career researchers. And so we're currently working with the methods groups, the managing editors executive, and Cochrane's membership and support teams to develop how methods groups and CRGs connect and work better together. And at the moment, we've got three kind of main priorities, which are listed on this slide. So the first is the launch of a unified methods network, which will help break down the silos between the methods groups. The second area is to make a better use of task exchange, as I mentioned earlier, and really using it as a way so that if there are methods tasks that need to be completed across Cochrane, and that might be in a methods group or a CRG or a field or any other group, that we can start matching those people who have the experience to those who need it. The third area is around offering more opportunities to early career researchers so they can get involved in review production. And this might be in peer review, in authorship, and in mentoring. And we're also continuing to work with the methods groups as we get feedback and on these projects so that they can refine the way that they work. Okay, so I mentioned the newly launched Methods Network. So this is an open network, and we welcome all who are interested in Cochrane methods or in evidence synthesis methods to get involved. This is up and live, so I'll share the link in the Q&A box after I finish talking. But essentially, each person who joins can choose which methods group that they are interested in, and they can also decide how they want to get involved. And once you sign up, you're sent a welcome pack, and this will give you lots of details on the methods network. It also includes information about the benefits of being involved, as well as the how to get involved and stay up to date on changes or opportunities. And this is particularly important for those early to mid-career researchers, because we've got details in there on how to use the Task Exchange platform to create a profile and ensure that you're visible within Cochrane so that you can get involved more easily. Okay, and so now we want to open it up to you all, because we really want to know what you think is going to be most useful in terms of developing links between methodologists and authors and editors, or between methods groups and CRGs. So on this slide, you can see a few areas that we're either working on or that we're thinking about. It would be great to get your thoughts on these. Are there anything that you think's missing? Or do you have any other questions or comments from today's session that you'd like to ask any of the speakers? And also just to highlight that there at the top is the URL to joining the Methods Network. And as I mentioned, I'll pop it into the chat as well, so you've got the link there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ella. That was really interesting. We haven't got any questions at the moment, but I'll keep an eye. So I've got one actually that I think I wanted to pick up on, because you mentioned early career researchers a few times in that presentation, and I think that that's something that really deserves a bit of attention, really. And I think that we've both mentioned it in our presentations that with the kind of complexity and the range of methods increasing, we're obviously very conscious of making sure that we don't alienate early career researchers and people that are less experienced in Cochrane reviews. So I wondered, I don't know if it was on one of your slides, but I wondered if you had any thoughts about kind of the role of mentoring in supporting some of this.
So I think the role of mentoring is huge, and it's definitely something that we want to be looking into. We started this project sort of 6 months ago, just over 6 months ago, and so at the moment we're developing the Task Exchange platform, and we are looking at how we can work with Editorial Manager that has this kind of way of having the peer review reports and the peer review calls within the systems, so that you can set up some of this mentoring sort of capabilities in a bit more of a structured way. That we haven't got any concrete plans about how we're going to do it yet, this is going to be something that we'll be talking about. Well, we'll be talking to the CRGs and talking to the methods groups throughout this year to start working out how we can build those structures in, because I think it is really important. And one of the things that we're keen to do within the Task Exchange platform is to have different sort of levels of someone's experience. So are they entry level? Do they have a bit more experience? Are they senior? And using that to maybe assign different roles of mentorship, of mentoring, so that we can start capturing who's, there's a lot of volunteers that are completing these tasks and doing these roles, and we need to make sure that we're capturing those who have the expertise, the experience, and the willingness in these different roles. And we're hoping that the Task Exchange platform and the links to the My Cochrane account will just help manage that in a bit more of a streamlined way, so that it could be rolled out by different groups.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's about making it feasible, isn't it? And making it as easy as possible for those that are looking for expertise. And, we know there are always the idea of building this pool and kind of making it more diverse and bigger is actually really important, because we do find that for certain methods, perhaps some of the more novel ones, there aren't actually that many people that are really experienced in them. And I know that Kerry and Tess have been working with, for example, the Prognosis Methods group to start building the capacity there and sharing some of that knowledge. Now, we do have some things that have come in here. We've got, is there a way for reviewers who are not part of a CRG or not an official Cochrane author to get engaged?
Absolutely. And if you want to get engaged with the Methods Network, you don't have to be a Cochrane author or editor to do that. Anyone who is interested in getting involved can join or just interested in learning more can join the network. And then you can sort of specify, if you wanted to get involved, you can specify that on your Task Exchange account. And that will hopefully, better connect you to the people that need that help. There are other tasks on Task Exchange that aren't just about being a Cochrane author.
Absolutely. And one of the key pillars of this is inclusivity. We don't want this to be, I think that methods in the past may have had, or at different times have had a bit of a enigma around it, and people feel unable to kind of crack the shell. And that's really what we want to try and break down. We've got another one, only just joined Cochrane, still finding out, understanding a path to match and build my growing knowledge is helpful. So just a nice comment there, finding out where everything fits. And that's another good point, actually, that I think that Cochrane is quite unusual. We do have a lot of structures. And I know that there's some work that hopefully will be happening with some of our websites to try and make it a bit easier to navigate, because I think that, if you're not familiar with Cochrane, there's a lot to learn. There's we've probably said a few acronyms in this that have been unhelpful. So CRG is something that gets banded around a lot, but it's a Cochrane review group, and that's where the reviews essentially get set up and edited and supported. Apologies if we've said some acronyms throughout this session that haven't been familiar.
And if you're interested, just to add there as well, if you're interested in getting involved on kind of methods tasks, if you wanted to join the Methods Network, you get sent that welcome pack that has details about how to get involved, where the training is. There's a wealth of information in there for someone who's new and not sure how to navigate things yet.
Great. And then we've got a comment from Emma. I've not been saying names, actually. Task Exchange will become even better for connecting people with a few tweaks. So glad you're on the case, Ella. So just a pat on the back there.
Also, just a flag there on Task Exchange that Anne Shackleton in the Task Exchange kind of membership team is doing a whole kind of review of Task Exchange, because it has so much, there's so much promise with that platform. It could achieve so much. So there is also a wider project that we're kind of feeding into with this methods aspect, but there's a wider project happening to sort of develop it and better meet the needs of the groups across Cochrane with these small tweaks that could make it so much more usable.
Absolutely. And another comment, so also there was mention of the great work that the MSU was doing there, so around risk of bias too. We've got another one there of joining a group is a bit overwhelming. Is there a simple process by email and given a link to join the platform? So I don't know whether that's in relation to methods or if it's generally with Cochrane, but certainly, I mean, Ella, you can say about the methods side of it.
Yeah, so with the methods side, that link allows you to join different methods groups in different ways. It depends how much you want to get involved, but you can either say that you're just interested in hearing about things or you are interested in actively getting involved. So if you're new, you might just want to see what's going on and join in a kind of listening capacity before you kind of start wetting your toes and getting your feet in.
And then we have a comment from Kira, who has actually highlighted the Students for Best Evidence blog, which is a great point. And she said it's a great way to explain some of the complicated concepts in a plain language way. So that's also a good place to start if you're new to Cochrane. Good. I have one more question actually, or something that I wanted to ask you, Ella, that before we move on and close the session. But it was with regards to kind of diversity and how that fits with this. And because I know since we've launched the Methods Network and the login that we've certainly seen a lot of people getting involved, which has been really encouraging. But do you have anything to say about kind of whether we've managed to kind of attract people from around the world or whether it's been clustered in certain areas?
So there is definitely, I don't have the numbers, but there's definitely across the Methods Network, we have representatives from all of the continents. And it's definitely a global community within that network. I think we have, we've set up the, we're trying to set up the structure for getting involved at the moment, but I think that we also have a task to think about maybe, being a bit more strategic in terms of, are there certain areas where we want to increase our visibility and get more people involved, particularly from lower and middle income countries, and thinking how we might maybe work with the different geographic groups, for example, to try and do that. So there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of promise with what we've been doing at the moment, and it's definitely something that's at the heart of what we want to do. We want to increase diversity. We want to increase inclusivity within the methods community. So it's all to be done. Yeah,
lots to do, but I think it's the work that you've been leading is really going in the right direction. Okay, thank you so much, Ella, for your presentation and for fielding those questions. I think that we've managed to get through them. So really then, it's just, let me get back to my slides. It's just to say thank you, really, to everyone that's come along. Thank you for all of the input that you've provided, which has been really fantastic. If you do have anything that you've sort of forgotten or you didn't want to say, then you can still, for the next few minutes, be adding anything in those comments. And on the next slide, I'll provide our contact details as well in case you want to get in touch with us about anything. But yeah, thank you so much for engaging and providing your views and your questions. And thank you also to our speakers, obviously, so to Kerry, Tess and Ella. And then just a few bits and pieces here at the end here. We just wanted to kind of highlight and bring together, I know that Ella has been and Kerry, I think, have been posting some of the information as we've been talking, so you can hopefully find that in the Q&A if you missed anything. So here are some ways that you can kind of get involved or find out more. So the first one is to attend one of the web clinics. So you can find, I've put the URL there, but you can also Google, I think, probably Method Support Unit, or just go to the methods.cochrane.org website and navigate from there. And so they're booked in advance. The next one is on Thursday, the 6th of May. There's a web form on there so that you can put in what you would like input on, and sometimes Kerry or Tess will be able to get back to you straight away, or you can bring it and we can talk about it during the web clinic there. So that's a great way to, if you're struggling with something related to methods, you've got access to them via that route. We've also got lots of resources on the Methods website. So if you go to methods.cochrane.org, you'll be able to find some of that. It also will have lots of information about some of the things we've talked about today, about the methods groups and how Cochrane functions in terms of methods, if any of that wasn't clear. Kerry and Tess also presented at one of Carla Suarez-Weiser, who's currently the CEO of Cochrane, at her webinars. So they presented at the March webinar last month. So if you want to find out some more, they did some more detailed presentations there, and you can watch the recordings. The best way to find those is to probably Google Cochrane Join the Conversation, and you'll be able to see lots of the presentations that have been done there. And then finally, most importantly, we've got our email addresses there, and we really do want to hear from people and to hear views, because we know that it's difficult, that, you know, methods are, as we saw at the beginning, absolutely at the heart of why Cochrane has the reputation that it does, but they're also difficult. And we want people to feel, authors and editors to feel like they're supported and they've got avenues for support and for accessing guidance and for giving their views about what's actually needed to make things easier and to make sure that the reviews are being done in a timely way. And then finally, I'll go back to this one. So that just leaves a couple of housekeeping points before we close the session. So if you want to watch this session or share it with anybody else, then they'll all be available, I think, as recordings available at a later date. And I think following this session, so in a couple of minutes' time, there'll be a coffee break, and then I think after that, there'll be an opportunity to join colleagues for a social lunch break with some topic-based rooms where you can go and talk with people with similar interests and backgrounds. You can also visit the Project Hub, I think, on the platform and browse some of the projects that are that we have in this area. And then there's lots of opportunities to meet people throughout the next couple of days as well. So thank you again. And it's a shame that we didn't manage to do this in person, but we're really looking forward to seeing some of you again in the not too distant future. Thank you.